I'm getting some pretty strong reactions from some faces. I'm thinking a lot of you disagree. Now, war should be avoided if at all possible, but there are certain times in which a war may be fought with a good cause and good intentions. In order to protect the lives of innocent moms and innocent kids in the country, it may be necessary to kill the murderers who seek to take life. Certainly, a war fought in defense is a just war. John the Baptist was speaking with a group of soldiers, and as he was speaking to them, he was under the influence of the Holy Spirit, such that his words are the words of God. And this group of soldiers came to him, and they asked him, "And we, what shall we do?" And he said to them, "Do not extort money from anyone by threats or by false accusation, and be content with your wages." Now, if a group of soldiers were to come to a pacifist, and they were to say, "What should we do?" then the very first answer that the pacifist is going to give is, "You need to leave the military. You need to get out right now. Because all war is evil, you can't participate in war." But what does John the Baptist say? That's not at all what he says. He says, don't extort money, be content with your wages, that sort of thing. If John the Baptist were a pacifist, and if God were a pacifist, then he certainly missed a good opportunity. It is okay for you to participate in the military. So, there are a lot of misunderstandings concerning the Sixth Commandment. There are people that think that it forbids things that it doesn't forbid. Let's talk about what it actually forbids. It forbids all unlawful killing. And in order to understand what that involves in its entirety, I'm going to take you back to the first murder. And in this first murder, you're going to see what happens in a man's heart that leads him to kill. Genesis chapter 4, beginning in verse 3. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground. And Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain was very angry, and his face fell. And the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry, and why has your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, then sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is for you, but you must rule over it." Cain spoke to Abel, his brother, and when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. Here's the complete story of murder from beginning to end, from its conception all the way to its completion. Cain came before the Lord, and he brought an offering to God that was not acceptable. He did not offer it in faith like his brother Abel did. There was something that was desperately wrong with his heart because he had some sort of an attitude of rebelliousness. And you can see that in what happens after God starts to confront him. His bad nature starts to come out. He burned in anger. Outwardly, you would have looked at Cain and you would have said, "This guy is following after God." Because here Cain came with his offering. And you would have said, "Look at him. He is doing what is right." It's when you're judging by these outward actions. But God could see down deep into his heart. And even though he may have looked like he was a follower of God, he didn't have a right heart. And that became apparent when that hatred started to seethe up to the surface. Cain hated God. Cain did not bow down to the authority of God. When God started to correct Cain, Cain rebelled against God. The sin of murder begins with a rebellion against God. It begins with a disregard for God and his laws. It manifests itself in a hatred for God. And that hatred for God is often expressed in a hatred for other human beings. If you hate God, it's hard to do anything against God. God is awful big and you're awful small. And so you can hate him all you want, but you still can't hit him. But you can hit the things that are made in his image. That satisfaction that you need from hatred, that you hate God and you want to do something with it, but you can't. And so you seek to satisfy that hatred by striking out against God's image. In the case of Cain and Abel, we know that Cain killed Abel because his deeds were evil and his brothers were righteous. 1 John chapter 3, verse 12. Cain killed Abel because his deeds were evil and his brothers were righteous. Cain looked at his brother and he saw that Abel had done what was pleasing to God, and so he started to feel like he had to eliminate that source of goodness that was so close to him. He hated his brother because his brother was good. He saw the image of God in his brother, and he hated him. And that hatred in his heart worked its way out into real physical murder. He struck out against the reflection of God's glory. As I was reading on the Sixth Commandment, I read some rather insightful words that are given by a man named Brian Edwards. This is what he said. We can defame a character, despise a person, slander them, and spread malicious gossip. And in doing so, we break this commandment. Leviticus 19:17 warns, do not hate a brother in your heart. That is a form of murder. Hatred hurts us just as murder does. It hurts our relationships, twists our minds, and ruins our lives. It is not gossip that is innocent. It is not normal. It is not okay. It is something that is very, very dangerous. The motive for gossip always involves hatred for another person and hatred for God. Striking out at the image of God around us using our words. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes to do. There are gangs in America. And I don't know what to compare that to in Japanese society, except to say it's sort of like the Yakuza, but not organized. These are young kids that have banded together in some sort of an odd, dysfunctional family, and they go around hurting other people. That's the best way that I can describe a gang, is young people that hurt other people. And generally speaking, membership in a gang involves killing someone. And kids that have become involved in gangs, and especially those who have come out of gangs, say what it's like to make the first kill. They say that it's ever so difficult to go and kill the person the first time, and so they have to think about it, and they have to work their way up to it. And then finally they can go out and they can kill somebody in a drive-by shooting or some other method. But it's easiest to do even if you don't have to look at them. But then the second time it's a little bit easier. And the third time it's even easier than that. And after you kill somebody, after you've killed a number of people, it's like it's the easiest thing you can ever do. It's like getting out of bed in the morning. No problem at all. I can go out and kill a few people. This is the thing about sin, the sin of hatred. It desensitizes you. The more you do it, the easier it is to do. And it's the same sort of thing with hatred. Not only is murder easier after you've practiced it for a while, but the more you hate, the easier it is to hate. Soon hate becomes a part of you. When Edwards is talking about this is his warning. Hatred hurts us just as murder does. It hurts our relationships. It twists our minds. And it ruins our lives. Can't you see that? Can't you see how it desensitizes you? How it becomes easier and easier and easier to hate. Easier and easier and easier to spread malicious gossip. That's the bad news. Here's the good news, and it is good news indeed. The message of the law